Hi, it's Dan from dansbesttech.com. I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on the 2015 13-inch MacBook Air and create a mid-2018 review for it. What if the MacBook Air, the inspiration for all ultrabooks, was released today after so many ultrabooks and ultralights have already saturated the market? Let's review the 2015 13-inch MacBook Air. As an average Joe who doesn't want to break the bank, I'm reviewing the base model, the absolute cheapest model you can purchase that also has 8 GB of RAM. My configuration is the 1.6 GHz Intel Core i5 dual-core processor. Currently, you can buy the 8 GB 2017 MacBook Air refurbished at apple.com with 128 GB of SSD storage for $849. If you upgrade to 256 GB of SSD storage, you'll be paying $179 extra. Other options include the Core i7 for another $150 extra. I don't recommend either of these changes, and I'll get into why a little later in the review. As far as the keyboard, I love this keyboard. It feels way better than this generation's new MacBook and MacBook Pros. It uses the better, and yes, I mean better, Apple keyboard, where each key has 1.4 millimeters of travel before registering a click. The newer MacBook Pro keyboards with the butterfly keys have almost half that travel and are not as comfortable to type on at all. I spent a year with the MacBook and couldn't get used to it. This older keyboard is quieter too. The keys are also backlit with the ability to adjust the brightness, but this has become standard on most laptops. They also include an ambient light sensor. This trackpad is like no other trackpad I've used on a Windows or Chrome OS computer. The glass feels smooth under my fingers. Although Microsoft eventually ups their game with the Windows Precision drivers, the sensitivity on a Mac trackpad is like the sensitivity of using the glass touchscreen on your phone. It just feels better. When I test a trackpad, I roll the tip of my finger on it to see if the cursor on the screen will move exactly the distance I want it to. For the MacBook trackpads, that happens. For Windows trackpads, sometimes it happens. This trackpad isn't the Force Touch trackpad on the newer MacBook Pros, so you'll have to click closer to the bottom to register a click. But for me, I click by tapping the trackpad, so this doesn't really cause an issue for me. It's just like tapping the touch screen on your phone. As for ports, the selection is significantly better than what is currently offered in Apple's latest, more expensive laptop line, although not as fast. The MacBook Air port selections include an SD card slot full-sized, USB 3.0 with speeds up to 5 gigabits per second, Thunderbolt 2 port with speeds up to 20 gigabits per second, a MagSafe 2 power supply slot, a second USB 3.0 port, and a headphone jack slot. It's sad that I have to talk about a headphone jack like it's a plus these days. Now let's talk about the size and weight of this laptop. The 13-inch screen uses Apple's 16:10 aspect ratio, which in truth is great for scrolling through web pages, as you can see more of the top and the bottom of each web page. You'll get black bars during video playback though. As far as weight, I can hold this laptop with one hand with no problems. The 2.9-pound laptop easily fits inside a bag and does not make it very heavy. It is 0.68 inches at its widest point, but it tapers to just 0.11 inches, which revolutionized laptops back in 2008, but is now subpar compared to other ultrabooks. All this said, the size of this laptop is large enough to multitask, but small and light enough to be very portable. Of course, now we have to talk about the screen's TN panel. I remember a few years ago that reviewers were saying that the TN panel, yes, it's a TN panel, not an IPS display, was one of the best TN panels on a laptop. Yes, the resolution isn't as high and the text is slightly blurrier than laptops of this generation, and it's good to know that Apple has done a really good job at making high-resolution displays work well with their OS. Is this screen Retina quality? No. But am I putting my Retina 3 inches away from the screen like I do with my smartphone? No. Therefore, the higher resolution isn't as apparent as it was for smartphones. Can you tell a difference? Yes. But is it worth the cost? No. And here's why. Battery life. Let me just say, wow. I remember when the 2014 model was released with the Haswell processors, the battery life expectancy blew everyone's mind. Apple claimed 12 hours of battery life. Realistically, I see closer to 10 hours now, which is still better than any other laptop, Windows or Mac. I can use the MacBook Air for an hour and a half and the battery capacity level will still say 100%. Also, when I close the lid, the laptop goes to sleep. I'll pick my laptop after a month, open it up, and it will instantly turn on and prompt me for a password. As far as upgradability, unlike Apple's most recent models, you can still open the MacBook Air and replace the SSD and the battery, but there's a cost. The problem is that Apple uses a proprietary SSD. Other manufacturers make the SSD, but they are very expensive. Transcend Jet Drive 820 is a good SSD that you can buy on Amazon. Links in the description below. Right now, they go for $199 for a 240 gigabyte SSD, $330 for a 480 gigabyte SSD, and around $600 for a 960 gigabyte SSD. Batteries, on the other hand, are a better deal. You can get a new battery for your MacBook Air for $50 on Amazon right now. Links in the description below. Therefore, with the exception of the processor, you can make a used MacBook Air like new again by simply upgrading the SSD and battery. Speaking of the processor, the i5 processor in the MacBook Air is still very decent in 2018. It's dual core, yes, and I know a lot of MacBook Pros are moving to 4-core on their Core i5 models, but this thing still pushes. As far as the RAM, as I said before, in my opinion, do not buy a computer today with anything less than 8 gigabytes of RAM. For this device, or any other laptop, get something with 8 gigabytes of RAM or more. As far as gaming goes, the MacBook Air is not meant for it. That said though, let's run some benchmarks. The integrated Intel HD Graphics 6000 with 1536 megabytes of dedicated memory runs Tomb Raider just fine. The fans do kick in during gameplay. They aren't loud, but they are present. GeForce Now Cloud Gaming for Mac and Steam in-home streaming are great alternatives if you really want to game on the MacBook Air. So now we have to talk about the 2015 version versus the 2017 more recent version. So why get the 2015 model over the 2017 model? The 13-inch versions are physically identical from a chassis standpoint. The 1.6 GHz to 1.8 GHz processor bump shows an approximately 10 to 13% better performance in Geekbench 4 benchmark results. As a result, the same processor is being used in both versions, but it's just a slightly higher clock rate. This is not a significant enough performance boost for me, so there is no reason for me to upgrade, but if you can find a 2017 model for a good deal, go for it. Thank you for tuning in to my review of the 2015 13-inch MacBook Air. Click like if you liked this video, please subscribe if you want to see more, and check out Dan's Best Tech for a full written review.